All right, big news coming out of yesterday, and this is from Spencer Fernando here, and he says, breaking legally ordered weed documents destroyed. Now, what exactly this entails, I don't know, but the one thing I do know is the Liberal government has been about as heavy handed as one can possibly be when it comes to this whole situation, and that they are trying to sweep it all under the rug and pretend like it didn't happen, right? And this is a very scary precedent. It's a very scary precedent. And to me, I don't know how, I mean, I do know how, it's just I don't know how people can live with themselves. I don't know how Canadians can just ignore this, right? Like, I don't know how people can just ignore this. The government, I mean, the Liberal government has done something that has enriched them. I mean, when you include all the people involved, well into the millions of dollars, right? Like, if you're doing work for a charity, the whole point of it is that it's unpaid, or at the very least, very, very small amounts, not hundreds of thousands of dollars in the case of, Trudeau's mom, and millions when you include all of them, right? So it doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Um, and the big problem, like I say, is that we are setting a precedent as a country that we don't care about corruption. Like, we don't care about corruption. And this has kind of been the story coming out of Canada over the last, I mean, basically all of Trudeau's lead. I mean, basically over the last, generation or so, the amount of corruption within government has continuously gone up and up and up. And I think the main reason for that is a lot of people just don't care. We have a lot of apolitical people, or at the very least, somewhat apolitical people, that they don't really care. Or at the very least, maybe they are aware of this kind of stuff, but they feel powerless, so they don't ever speak up. And the big problem is that the way we have government designed is it really attracts these kind of people. It attracts people that they're just power hungry, or they're corrupt, or they're prone to being corrupt. This is the problem with government, is that it attracts or oftentimes, because I think there's always exceptions to, generalities, right? There's definitely some good people in government, but the problem is that the majority of people that are in government, they're not good people. There are people that are power hungry. They view it as an opportunity to enrich themselves or make themselves more famous, or there's also the power aspect of it too. I think there's a lot of people. And this is the thing that I really don't understand: is people like, on one hand, you'll be debating them on something, and their whole argument is, oh, we can't do that because too many people they would do the wrong thing. But then on the flip side, it's like, oh no, people are naturally good. They would never do that. Like, again, it's just I don't know how people can have such contradictory beliefs. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, is that the average person, like, the amount of contradictory, not just a little bit, like blatantly contradictory beliefs is something that really, really astounds me. Like, it really astounds me. So, as far as this goes, is anything going to come of it? No, nothing's going to come of it, because the Conservatives, I mean, they don't care that much. I think the people like Poilievre and stuff, they're doing their due diligence, but the Conservatives have sold out too much to the point to where they're doing anything. And even if they were just going to do anything, they don't have enough power. And the bigger problem is the Liberals. The Liberals are they're going to do whatever it takes to sweep it under the rug, and they know that the NDP are very vulnerable. So their solution to it is, just whenever this really comes down to it, their solution is, oh, we're just going to make it a confidence motion, and the NDP will never support that because they're completely broke right now. And you know, I think that they I think they know, and I think everyone knows, that they would lose seats if there was an election called. So that they're never going to support it, and the bloc has about as much power as they can gain. So that, I mean, they're not. I mean, they have been calling the Liberals out to some degree, but the bloc doesn't have much incentive to do anything, and the Liberals don't either, because I don't know how the Liberals feel. I mean, I think that if they knew that that they would pick up seats, if they thought it was very likely they would pick up seats, they would be wanting to call an election as well. But considering the fact that they don't seem to really want an election, or maybe they're kind of, so, neutral on the issue, I don't think they would pick up seats either. I think that if there was an election called, the Liberals would probably pick up a handful of seats. The Conservatives would probably pick up a handful of seats, but we would end up with a map that's still a Liberal minority. So I think that's why they don't want to do it. But anyway, like I say, this is a very bad precedent for Canada, that, corruption's pretty much, right out in the open now. And Most people don't care, right? Most people don't care. And that's a very scary precedent going forward. The next thing to bring up here is from Styx Hexenhammer here on Twitter, and he says leftists are actually jazz handing over a near 80-year-old dude who tossed 100,000 people in prison for minor drug possession, hoping he manages to pull the election out, but because of out of his ass because of rigging by billionaires. You lost your souls, dudes. Yeah, and this is a very good point that I brought up a lot before, but I wanted to touch on it again, in that it astounds me just how far the political spectrum has moved over the last 10 or 20 years ago. And that if you look at a politician like Joe Biden, right? If you look at a politician like Joe Biden, he was literally the worst of the worst, enemy number one of, liberals of like 10, 20 years ago. He was like the worst, aside from like a George Bush, he was like the worst of the worst. But now they don't care, right? And this is the thing that I've been bringing up for a while now, that politics is pretty much entirely about power nowadays, and that most people, specifically the very stringent, liberal, conservative kind of people, especially the left, because I think the conservatives' worldview is basically just leave me alone. The liberal worldview is take more of your stuff and give it to me. But again, they don't care, right? Like the fact that apparently, I don't know if it's actually true, given the amount of um, fraud going on. Joe Biden got the most votes in history, right? Obviously the population is growing, but still. And that speaks volumes to me that the base of the left, they don't actually care about, values, ethics, morality, any of that kind of stuff. They're going to vote for their guy no matter what. And here's the thing. The reason why I say that too is because Biden was an incredibly weak candidate. Number one, he had an incredibly bad past. I mean, corrupt. His policies were absolutely terrible. I mean, if someone were to propose his policies now, they would be vilified as horribly racist, right? But again, so again, like people just don't care. Like people just don't care. They're gonna vote for their team no matter what, and that's, I think, one of the worst things when it comes to politics these days. And I think the biggest problem too is that there isn't a lot of good alternatives because the establishment has so much power and the mainstream media has so much power, and the only people they prop up are the most establishment candidates. So that's why you get these same kind of people over and over again. You never actually get someone that's that really different. I mean, Trump is the first example of that, which is another thing that really astounds me about the average person, is that they rail all day and all night about, oh, they're tired of these career politicians, and yet they finally get someone that isn't a career politician come along and they hate him more than ever, right? Like it's just like, I guess it's just the ignorance of the average person that really astounds me. um, the next thing to bring up here is from Brett Sears here on Twitter. Said the government announced a substantial increase in immigration levels to about 17% more, 50,000 more than was originally posted. Do you agree with that increase? Aaron O'Toole, we need more immigration in Canada. It's important for our economy and the well-being of all Canadians. Um, and then Natalie here says, I've said many times that Aaron O'Toole's platform is very, very similar to that of Trudeau. Yes, I want to win too, but with what platform exactly? Well, I have your attention. Let's take a look at Aaron's platform based on what he proposed during the leadership race. Now, again, this is the problem with the Conservatives nowadays, and this is the biggest problem with Canada, is that we have no real opposition. I mean, we do, but no relevant opposition, I would say. And I'm going to make a video on vote splitting coming up very soon, so stay tuned for that. But that's the big problem with Canada, is we have, and why I'm so pessimistic about Canada going forward. And again, I don't want to be pessimistic. I prefer to be realist, and I think anyone looking at it from an honest and objective point of view would be pessimistic about Canada, because we don't have real opposition, right? We don't have real opposition, and that's the big problem. And here's the thing, like, we have the only way that we're going to fix this. I mean, one of the only ways, I think, but one of the easiest ways to reduce unemployment and to actually grow the economy, and by the economy I mean create more jobs and increase people's wages, is to cut immigration. If we don't do that, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen, because if we keep jacking up immigration, all it does is just dilutes the supply, right? Like, if employers have endless amounts of people to pick from, they're going to hire the cheapest people, right? Because that's how it works, right? That's how it works. And if they don't have nearly as many to people to pick from, well, guess what? The demand is going to go up because, or sorry, the supply goes down, right? Because the lower the supply, the more um, the less picky employers can be. And this is the problem with the market these days, is that there's some jobs out there, but the employers are absolutely flooded with applications because there's so many people looking for work, right? So this is one of the biggest issues facing Canada. I don't know why it's not talked about more. It's basically just talked about amongst PPC, kind of the PPC community, which I don't understand why it's not talked about more. Again, the left loves it because it's votes, and the right likes it because the corporations love it. And again, this is another massive contradiction of the left, is that they claim to be against the big evil corporations so much, but yet they support one of the biggest policy positions that the corporations want. Like, it's very ironic. But anyway, the next thing to talk about here is, or the last thing is Trump. Um, the initial polls showed that he had more support, this time around than last time around amongst every race other than whites, right? He gained amongst every other race other than whites, at least the major ones, which flies in the face of this whole Trump is a racist idea, right? And I think we can, I mean, we've already been able to do that, but can we finally put that to bed? This whole idea that, oh, Trump's a racist? No, he really isn't. And I don't know what the left's. I mean, I think I know what the left's real are. The left's real argument is, oh, the people are too stupid to vote what's best for them, which I don't believe, but that's essentially what they believe. Um, I think the more interesting aspect is, why did he lose support amongst whites? Honestly, I have no idea. I have no idea why. Well, honestly, off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I'm not sure because if anything, he should have gained. Maybe the whites are just more likely to be like, hey, yeah, I supported him in 2016, but he hasn't done enough. Maybe, but I don't know if that's enough to explain all of it. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because it really flies in the face of the left's whole, oh, he's a racist argument. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about today. If you liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you check out those links in the description. Follow me on those other platforms. If you want to support me, I got links for that as well. Any support, I would very much appreciate.